They say that a dangerous man is a man that can hurt somebody that doesn't. Or a warrior is a person that knows how to use a sword but keeps it sheathed. And every now and then I get a reminder of who I used to be and how different I am today, and the things that have changed. You know, I want to tell you a little story about a guy that I heard, and it was justified, but I still didn't. It's still something that I carry with me, and it's not great. You know, my ex-wife was really a real fuckbag, man. She was quite the piece of work, and I loved her. You know, I fell in love with her. She was cute. She was a sick girl. She had a lot of problems, and we all know that, you know, that crazy comes with the best sex. For those of you who have been there, know what I'm talking about. You know, I've been trying to get sober for a very long time, and I wasn't always successful at it. I'm successful at it right now, but I wasn't always successful at it. I would drink off and on, and this particular day, we decided we were going to drink. We went to my ex-wife's sister's wedding, and they had an open wine bar, and gosh, you know, we just started drinking as if we didn't have an alcoholic tendency to fucking just drink and drink and drink and drink, man. So grateful that I'm different now, but we lived in this apartment, and the party was just down the street from where we were drinking. And so thankfully that night, you know, as we both continued to drink and get drunk, we decided to walk to our apartment. And so we walked to our apartment, and as always, what happened is she started running her fucking mouth and decided that I was doing something that she didn't appreciate. We got in this big fight. There was two entrances into our apartment. There was a front entrance that went out onto one street, and then there was an entrance that went out to a back street that was kind of like an alley. And I went downstairs and I went out the back entrance, and went outside. I started crossing the street, and she came out after me. She was just yelling. She was just, you know, yelling about it. And there's these two other guys, and they were walking down the street, and you know, kind of walking, and they seen her, but they didn't see me, and so they started yelling at her. And I was already mad because she started pulling her shit. You know, she started pulling the bullshit that she always pulled. She knew how to get me. She could belittle me, and just, she could really push my buttons. She knew how to make me feel insecure, and I was already insecure, obviously, because I acted this way, but she knew how to exploit that and expand on that and get me to act out in certain ways. She loved that violent, intense energy, you know, and I was already mad. So these guys are walking, and one of them yells to her. He goes, "Hey, baby, you look like you like to fuck." And just instantly it was red, man. I was fucking, everything was red. And I turned around and I was like, "Hey!" And I yelled at him, and I started going towards him, and then he came up towards me, and, you know, we got in each other's face. We're just, you know, going after it. And his buddy was like trying to get him to stop. And the closer I got, the more intense we got. He started, you know, what I remember of it is eventually he swung on me, and he swung on me like 4 or 5 times. He just, you know, started hitting me, and I was just like, yeah. The energy was so intense, and I was just like, yeah, you know. And he hit me a few times, and she was trying to pull me off, and I just swung and I hit him one time. And he went out, man. He fell, he turned, and he fell, and the back of his head hit the ground. Thud. And the sound of his skull hitting the ground, I'll never forget. And I remember the feeling that I had, that everything was going to be different now. And, I stood up and I was still yelling and I was still really intense. And I, took my cigarette and I flicked it in his face. And I was like, I looked at his buddy. I was like, you want fucking some too? And he was like, nah, dude, I'm good. And Jenna started freaking out. And she was like, oh, yeah, you're going to go to prison. You're fucking this and that. And, well, because we were yelling, we started kind of drawing a crowd, because down the street, at the end of the street one way, were a bunch of bars, and then there was people with their windows open in the alley side of the apartment, and people were watching. I don't know how many people saw this whole thing. Well, I started walking and I took off, and I think for some reason I feel like the guy that came up to me was an undercover cop, because I was walking and he was really, really good at calming me down. He came up to me and I was like, I was out of there, and he came up to me and was like, look, man, hey, just calm down. Like, I don't want any problems. Just come back. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. What's going on? That guy's really hurt, I think. Like, that guy never got up. He never did get up. And, over what? Like, why? Some stuff came out about that guy. He was having a hard time too. He was drinking a lot that day. The cops were looking for him for breaking into his girlfriend's apartment. When he did finally come to at the hospital, he started assaulting the nurses, and he was going through a hard time also, man. And our energies connected for whatever reason at that time. But from what I understand, I ended up having to go to court for that. I ended up having to, I never did pay the fine. Like, I always felt justified in that, because who knows what would have happened if I wasn't there. But hurting somebody like that is not something that you ever want to do. It's a feeling that you never want to have. I'm very grateful that I've been able to work through that stuff and become a different kind of person, where if that same scenario happened today, it would be a lot different. It would be so different. I would act so much differently about my reaction, my intention, the way that I handle things, because of my sobriety, because of my age, my maturity level. All those things are completely different. But for some reason I was thinking about him today, and I was thinking about hurting people, and how lucky I am to be where I'm at, that guy didn't die, that I didn't die, that it wasn't worse than it was, and that I'm sober today. That I get to have a program, and what I'm really working on is trying to find this connection with God. And my dad was a real believer in God and in Christ and in the Bible and that stuff, and he found great faith in that, and that stuff comes really difficult for me. It's really hard for me to find that type of faith and that belief that there's a loving intelligence out there that has a plan for me and all that stuff. But I work towards that today. The sobriety part of me wants to have that connection with a loving creator. I want to believe that happened for a reason, and that this is happening for a reason, even though I don't know what that reason is. But this is a story that I just felt like sharing, that I felt like talking about and trying to get out there and share with you guys. So yeah, thanks for letting me share.